Hello everyone and welcome back to my channel. If you've been keeping up with my videos lately, you will know that I have started a new little series that involves all different types of body modifications. So far we've looked at play piercing and eyeball tattoos, and in today's video we're going to be looking at tongue splitting. If you haven't seen a tongue split before, this is what it looks like, and if you watch this video you're going to see many of them. So if that is of interest to you, stick around. So I found a great video that can get this video started, and it is a great explanation of what a tongue split actually is.
Here's my take on tongue splitting. I'm a facial plastic surgeon, and what I'm talking about is the procedure to split the tongue in half. That's also known as bifurcation or forking. So the procedure involves splitting the tongue in half right in the midline. The tongue is actually composed of two separate set of muscles that are fused in the midline, and that's why when you split the tongue, you can kind of move each side separately. If this is something that you are interested in, you should definitely only have it done by a surgeon. The tongue is a very vascular area, a lot of bleeding can happen. There's tons of oral bacteria, so there's always a risk of infection. It can cause issues with eating and speaking. If you've already had this done and you regret it, it is reversible in some cases.
Interesting. I actually didn't know that it was reversible, but I guess like she says, in some cases you wouldn't guarantee on it being reversible. You're basically going in for it knowing that this is going to be the way it is forever, and you might be lucky in the future if you change your mind, you might be able to get it reversed. However, I am sure it is a very expensive procedure, probably a lot more than it costs to actually get your tongue split. Just as many revisions are, procedures always become so much more expensive and so much more technical and difficult when it is a revision, because you've split the tongue, there'd be so much scarring involved. And the tongue has been moving as two separate muscles for quite some time, and it's learnt to adapt to that. So it would be very interesting to see how that works, but I can't agree with this Dr. Moore that this should be done by a surgeon. No one else should be doing this. To be honest, the tongue split seems like something that is more likely that a surgeon would perform. Now, I'm not saying I know that surgeons would perform this kind of procedure, and it's probably very unlikely that you'll find one to do it, but maybe there is one that would do it, or maybe it's likely to be something that could be done in the future and accepted among the medical community. Whereas something like eyeball tattooing, where it's posing a much more great risk to the person getting it, I really doubt that's going to come around and suddenly become a standard medical procedure or a specialist medical procedure. I just don't ever think that's going to be something that's going to be accepted in the medical community as a thing that will be done. It's just far, far, far too dangerous.
Pretty much the way you split your tongue is you lay in the room and then a guy gets a scalpel, pretty much pulls your tongue out and just slices it straight through the middle. You stitch up both sides. It takes about a week to heal, which isn't like too long. Each day you have to like pull your tongue apart because it tries to like grow back together. You have to sleep sitting up with like a bucket because like otherwise it would choke on like your blood and spit and stuff. It's pretty gross.
Sounds about right. Walk in, guy scalpel, tongue, straight down middle, stitch up. You're on your way. Nothing fancy, no anesthetic. And if the body modification artist is administering anesthetic, that is a whole other realm of legal trouble that they could get themselves into, because it is a drug, and it is a drug that needs to be prescribed and administered by the correct people. And if your body modification artist has their hands on that, it is likely it is some kind of like black market shit. You don't know if it is safe. So if they were telling you they were going to use it, obviously you probably want to use it because it's so painful. But at the same time, that's adding a whole other risk on top of this. Like, why risk that? You don't know what's in it. You don't know if they know how to use this drug. And it makes it so much more illegal than it already is just using the scalpel. That's kind of crazy when you think of it like that. Like, they are performing as if they are doctors, as if they are surgeons, and they are not any of these things. Why do they sit there and play with it afterwards? Ugh. See, the fact that the person is just sitting there like chilling, they don't really seem bothered by how painful that would be, makes me think that anesthetic has been used, which For the patient's sake, it's not that I really hope not because of the pain they would have to experience, but I really hope not for the sake that like it's super illegal to be using that. Yeah, that's kind of scary.
I was around heavier stuff like tongue splits and implants a lot early on in my career for one reason or another. I've never offered it though. I don't even really feel like it's piercing adjacent. The crossover between skill sets is kind of minimal. You have to be really careful with who you go ahead with doing these kinds of things to your body because the risk is a lot higher. You can seriously fuck yourself up. You could even die.
Obviously, I'm going to completely agree with that because I think it would be absolutely mad to think that I or any piercer I know would just go and start doing body modification. Like, absolutely not. You have no qualifications to be doing this kind of procedure. Like, what are you doing? The crossover between skill sets is just so different to someone who's doing body modification, which, yeah, it definitely is. And it definitely is for tattoo artists as well, because tattoo artists and body piercers aren't using scalpels. This is a major part of other body modifications like tongue splits, scarification, subdermal implants. All these things are requiring a scalpel to cut something somewhere, which no one within the tattooing piercing industry should be like even thinking they can perform, which is why I think it is mind-blowing that someone can just go from tattooing one day to I can pick up a scalpel tomorrow and do this. I get that it isn't that simple, and I get that people aren't seriously just doing that. They'd be learning from someone who has done it for a very, very long time, but that person who's been doing it for a very long time also isn't a surgeon or a doctor. So like, they shouldn't have ever been doing it. And someone had to do the experimentation at some point. Maybe it was on themselves and that might be seen as the right way to do it, but like I still just like don't agree with it. It's a good point that this piercer is making to say that like it's not even the same skill set. It's not at all. The closest thing that a piercer is using to a scalpel is a biopsy punch. And to be honest, I've never really thought into the legalities behind that. I don't see how going from a piercer to a body modification artist versus a tattoo artist to a body modification artist is any different, because the skill set for a body modification artist, like I said, is generally a scalpel, which neither piercers or tattoo artists are using. So neither of them have the skill set, you know? Wow, that looks crazy. I can't even imagine what that would feel like, already having just had it chopped open and now let's just like spread it apart and pull it around. Interesting. I find it pretty hilarious that like parts of this seem right. It looks like the area is very sanitary. It literally looks like they're wearing those gowns that you wear in surgery. Obviously they're not wearing like scrubs or anything though. I get that these people are trying to do everything right, but tongue splitting by piercer and body modification artist, like, blows my mind. Like, would you let me split your tongue? Because that's essentially what this is saying. It's saying that this person was a piercer and now they've become a body modification artist. Because of what qualifications? Absolutely none. Not to mention the bin down below. Does not look like a hazardous waste bin at all. Just looks like a steel bin with a black bin liner on it. I really hope nothing with blood or bodily fluids is going into that bin, because bleh, that's sick. I'm pretty sure they're not using steel bins with black bin liners. It's so hard to say. I get that these procedures don't exist medically, and I get that these people are trying to make it as safe and sanitary as possible, and that is fantastic. I get that, but it still doesn't make it any more legal to do it. Look, I really don't understand these videos where they're holding the two sides of the tongue apart and taking a video of it. It looks terrifying, and it looks like you're putting the client through so much pain. And the only way I can imagine they're not going through pain is because anesthetic has been used illegally. That is the only thing I can think of. Just like, what's the point in doing that? Like, what's the point in putting the client through that for the video? I don't understand. I mean, at least in the other one, there was hairnets, surgical gowns being worn. Here, we just got the hair flying straight into that split tongue. I mean, one benefit of being bald would be that No hairnet necessary. This person isn't even reacting to this. I just don't know. I mean, you'd have to stay still, obviously, but how are you not like wincing in pain? This makes me think that anesthetic has been used when it shouldn't have been used. Oh, I hate it. Everyone tries to look as professional as possible, but honestly, this just looks like two random people cutting someone's tongue open, and that basically is exactly what is happening. Thank you so much for watching this video. Let me know if tongue splitting is something that you are interested in, something that you want to get, or something that you would never do. If you enjoyed this, please give me a like down below and subscribe if you're new here, and I'll be back very soon. Bye.